Elliott, welcome to the Sipping Point.
Lori, how's it going? Good afternoon.
Awesome. Well, we're switching gears. I do a lot of segments on wine, but I love to mix in my craft beer makers when I can as well. So I was thrilled when you agreed to come on the show. And I love your background and I love getting people who create businesses like yours to talk a little bit about their story. Now, I know in 2011, you started doing home brewing while you were working at NASA,
Yeah.
which is a dream for a lot of people as well. What was it that made you take it from this homebrew fun project to a full-fledged business?
Well, that's a great question, and the journey wasn't so quick, right? So I started off home brewing just because I had a financial role in my early career, and I was looking kind of for a creative outlet and a way to kind of like express myself. I was a science fair nerd growing up. I was in like all the science fairs, so I was like in seventh grade, and so at the time, I think maybe beer went from like $6.99 a six pack to like $8.99, and I was like, you know what? I can make my own, which I thought was going to be cheaper. It definitely was not cheaper. It cost way more than I thought it was. But, just experimenting with those four ingredients, water, hops, yeast, and grain, and just kind of falling in love with all the different flavors you can make from there. Bought a kit, made a really bunch of really bad batches, and we started getting better. We bought an all grain system like 2 years later. And then I started bringing my little tasting bottles around to my friends. And, around 2014, 15, everyone's like, dude, this is pretty good. Like, you should sell it. And I always wanted my own company, so I figured I would start with something that I was passionate about. That's beer. I love beer. I still love beer. And so yeah, we started doing little pop up events, little like tasting events, try to walk people through how to like enjoy craft beer. And then we came up with the name and the brand Soul Mega in 2017. Incorporated the company in 18, and we've been selling beer commercially since September of 2019.
And tell me about the name Soul Mega. Where does that come from? What was the inspiration for the name?
But, so we throw around a bunch of names. I think when we landed on, we wanted a brand name that was not limited to one geographic location, but also bigger than beer. So Soul Mega is more of a lifestyle brand, and the concept behind it is we're celebrating like creative culture and the pursuit of passion. So we were trying to design a brand that could build a community around people who are interested in something and have drive and are curious. So it's kind of like soul magnified. It's like it's pretty cool. So we wanted something a little bit different. And I like the way it
Yeah,
sounds.
and I do love the way it sounds. And how do you I was struck by that. You have culture, creativity, community. How do you roll that into the brand and keep people engaged in those three areas?
It's really about kind of incorporating our brand ethos in everything we do. Like we talk about celebrating creative culture, and for us, like people look at craft beer a lot of different ways. You got it marketed as like a sports drink, and like there's a community social aspect of it, but also like there's the science piece of it of making beer. But the brewers are creatives in their own right, just like someone who could compose music or create a painting. So all of our cans have local graffiti artists on them. So every time we do a different beer, we collaborate with the local artists on the kind of there we go. This is our flagship worldwide here. And we when it comes to the music as part of our brand ethos, we do a lot of stuff with DJs, a lot of DJ sets. We have Mega Fest, which is a big block party we do. It'll be our fourth one coming up, and that's kind of like us merging block party culture with beer fest culture. And then we have the active lifestyle piece. So I like to ski, I like to ride my bike. We sponsor a run club. I play golf. We have a golf tournament. So it's kind of just like designing kind of messaging and activities around things that bring people together and can create communities in those subcategories.
Well, since you invoked the name of the worldwide pale ale, I think maybe it's a good time to take a little sip and talk
Yeah.
a little bit more about this. I have two of your brews, the other one being the one I believe that you entered in the Samuel Adams the Great American Dream Experienceship contest. That's a mouthful. But let's start with the pale ale because I think this is the flagship. This is the original that
This is.
you home brewed, but this was the one that everybody loves, right?
Yep, this is the one that people kept asking about. And so this is like your everyday drinker. It's 5.5%. And the goal behind the beer, well, it's got a lot of things, right? So it's called worldwide because it takes some European inspiration with the ingredients and kind of merges it in with a North American craft beer. So you've got a grain bill that kind of starts off as like a German wheat a little bit. And then it's hot like an American, like an IPA, but not as bitter. And it has bitter orange
Yeah.
peel in it. So it's like a nice refreshing, get a little bit of like citrus, a little bit of honey, It's like a nice all year round easy drinker.
And it's very hot today, as you know.
It's
So
very
this is quite refreshing. And, sometimes some of the pale ales can get overly hopped, but I think what you're saying is this is kind of like a balance between the bitter and the fruit together. So it really can appeal to a wide audience.
hence the name worldwide. Mass appeal, right? So we were playing around with so many different ways to do it. But yeah, we designed this beer to be like a nice, approachable craft beverage for the hardcore craft beer people to want that little bit of bitterness you get from the pale ale, but also a little bit of softer malt palate for maybe some people who are used to drinking lagers or the ones that just think beer is like the big guys.
Yes. Have you seen the movie Step Brothers?
Yeah, I was
So
talking
this
about the movie yesterday actually.
the minute I heard worldwide, I was thinking about, the company that entertainment company they were putting together, the worldwide. So it makes me giggle. And there are so many festivals and events people do with themed drinks around that movie because it's kind of a cult classic. So I don't know if you've looked into that, but I could see a place for your beer in that.
It's funny because the distributor we use for Maryland and DC and a little bit of Delaware, they're called Prestige LaDroit. And so when we first signed with them, we were saying Prestige worldwide. And so,
Yes, that's right. That was
yeah,
the name. That's so cool. Well, speaking of worldwide, you've just won an amazing competition, the Samuel Adams Brewing the American Dream, and you competed against a lot of other craft brewers. Tell me, how did the competition work? And then let's talk about how you placed in the competition.
okay. Yeah, so it was a application you had to apply to be a finalist. So you go through a series of questions and we submit our application. We got selected as one of 6 finalists and we had to compete in what they called the Crafting Dreams Beer Bash in Dumbo in Brooklyn, New York about I want to say it was June 11th. So about 3 weeks ago. And so
Wow.
essentially what you had was like a kind of like a mini beer festival where they had the 6 finalists in their different stations. And then the guests and the media people and influencers and some of the, I guess, corporate people who were there, they had ballots and they would go around and you would interact with like different waves of people and everyone's station was going to represent their brand in whatever way they chose. So it was us, a company called Intermission out of Richmond, Florian East out of the Detroit area, Immigrant Sun in Cleveland, Oak Park in Sacramento, and Pilot Brewing in Charlotte, North Carolina. So it was
Wow.
pretty cool. Yeah. And it was fun. It was hot that day too, but they also had some of the food vendors who so the Brewing American Dream is one of Sam Adams' like flagship programs that supports food and beverage entrepreneurs. So they also have a food segment and they support, small local chefs and bakers and all that type of stuff. So they had different food options there and a DJ. They had us with the beer.
Oh, that's great. And I believe the Metropolis IPA is the beer that you presented at the competition,
Yeah,
correct?
this is our newest our new number one seller here. So this is Metropolis IPA. This is a 6% kind of West Coast inspired IPA, and the artwork was done by a mural artist named Cryomatic. And the inspiration for this was to kind of tie in all the metro rails from the cities that we're from. So you got a combination of like DC, New York, Chicago, and LA kind of wrapped around in here. So it's
Oh,
cool,
that's very cool. I didn't realize.
kind of futuristic.
Yeah, really, really cool. What do you think in interacting with people during that day of the competition? What was it that connected with them, with your Metropolis, the beer, the brand? What do you think resonated with them and it ultimately led to you winning the competition?
Well, this is a really good beer. There's a lot of good beer there, but I think that people's reaction to the beer, and it's an IPA, so it's number one beer in America, but people always have these apprehensions about like the bitterness of an IPA or what it tastes like. So I think getting some of the non-beer drinkers to, it's not very bitter. It's got a nice tropical fruit flavor and aromatic. So people really like the beer and it's clean and it's not very boozy. But also, I think it was our story. I think a lot of people
Mm.
resonated with just, guys who are passionate about something and who didn't quit and are kind of following their dreams. I was working in NASA. I was in NASA for 16 years. I left recently to do this full time. So I was doing both at one point. And so I noticed a lot of people that interacted with us also had things going on the side and like they were thinking about pursuing kind of their dreams. And so I think maybe we were a little bit inspirational, but also maybe relatable to a lot of people. So
Yes.
Yeah, that was it was pretty cool. It was cool to get everyone's feedback in real time, and not everybody liked the beer, but I think they still respected, like, the artwork and, like, kinda like the brand story, so I'm happy we
Love that.
yeah, it's gonna be a very exciting opportunity.
Yeah, so other than just being getting the bragging rights of being the winner of the competition, what you win is a collaboration with Samuel Adams Brewery, correct? Tell me, how is this gonna work?
Okay, so it's a little multi-layered. So Brew the American Dream was started, I want to say over 15 years ago. And I think the meat of it is to provide coaching to young entrepreneurs and budding people in the food and beverage industry. So one of the main benefits of winning the competition is that we're going to be going to Boston for a week. And then when we get there, we'll do a brew collab with them. We'll get a chance to spend time with the CEO, Jim Cook, and then we'll be able to meet with different leaders in their functional areas of the business to kind of get one-on-one coaching. And so I'm excited about that part because that's kind of a way for me to not only educate the Sam Adams team about kind of my vision and how I've been kind of building the brand from the ground up, but also get a chance to learn about some of the things that made them one of the number one craft breweries in the country. So yeah, I'm excited. And we're also going to Great American Beer Festival with them in October.
That's
So
great, and that's in Denver, Colorado?
yep, in Colorado. It's October 10th and 11th.
Perfect. All right. So we talked a little bit about the artwork, of course, on the Metropolis IPA, but I'm going to taste it now. So tell me a little bit about more about how you crafted this and how this is maybe different from other IPAs that are out there.
Okay, so this is the Metropolis IPA. Again, it's more of a West Coast style, but you're really going to get a nice, clean, dry finish. And so the main
Hmm.
thing about all of our Soul Mega beers is we want to take traditional beer styles and just put a little bit of remix on them. So all of our beers are approachable. They're, right now they're around. This is a 6%. We haven't really made anything over, I want to say 8 or 9. We did an Imperial Stout in 2021. It was a collab with Three Stars. That was 9, but that was like our booziest beer. And so approachable beers, they're light in body and they finish clean is our approach. This one I think is different than most IPAs because of, this is not very, it's not that bite. It's more of like,
Right.
yeah, it finishes clean.
Because most of the time with the IPAs, I'm like, yeah, I got a sip, but it's just too overwhelming for me. So I would lean towards the pale ale if I had to choose. But this is not like hitting you over the head like I was expecting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And for those of us who maybe don't know, tell me what West Coast style means for an IPA.
And then I'm shooting myself in the foot by calling it that because I know the beer savants will be like, wait a minute, how many, but I like so you basically have like, you have to me, I put IPAs in 3 categories really. And you basically have your New England style, like your super hazy, like big tropical fruit, kind of juicy beers. You've got
Yep.
what I call like American or traditional IPAs. Like think about like Bell's Two Hearted or some IPAs that are more to me like malt forward, but still have like the pine kind of like a hop approach to it. And then you have the West Coast style, which can go far literally left and can be super like hoppy and like super in your face. But to me, this one's kind of a balance between both. You get the aromatics of a hazy, but you get a little bit of that bite and a little bit of that citrus note you would get on the West Coast.
You really do, and you get the finish, when we taste wine, we talk about the finish, like, after I take the sip, I really get the finish of that hop flavor, but none of the, sort of hit you over the head, as I think of it, bitterness that I expect from that when I hit that flavor, I expect it's gonna be like, "Whoa," I'm bracing, but you don't get that with this. I love this style.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Yeah,
maybe because I like hazies, so I'm like, "Okay, this is giving me the best of both worlds here." Now, as a craft, small craft brewery, it's certainly a huge honor when you land your beer in some of the larger retailers like Whole Foods and Total Wine, which you have done. What have you learned, if there's any inspiring, breweries or wineries out there, what have you learned through the process of getting your product placed in those larger retailers?
Yeah, so that whole journey for us was, I don't want to say daunting, but a little bit of backstory. We do have a distributor now. We've been with them for almost 3 years, but our company is technically almost 7 years old. So for the first 4 years, we were doing self distribution. So I was delivering beer to all the accounts, collecting invoicing. I was basically
Wow.
doing the procurement process end to end. And so it took us 2 years to get in our first chain, which was Trader Joe's at the time. And I mean, I would say just consistency. Like I thought it was going to be as easy as like just going into one of the stores and saying like doing my pitch like I would do into a restaurant or something, but they've got like centralized divisions and everything goes down from corporate and they have planograms and there's certain times of the year you can get in. But for us to get in Trader Joe's, I was doing everything. I found out who the buyer was from like LinkedIn or something. And I would just email them like every quarter, like pictures of our parties, like the can, just dropping in, saying what's up, like just updating them. After 2 years, he was finally like, "Hey, can you send us samples?" So I think just being consistent.
Okay.
Then once we got our distributor, it was a little bit easier because they already had some of those accounts. So getting in the grocery store kind of depends on who they're buying from too, because we were in Trader Joe's, and then when they consolidated their distributors, they looked at us and was like, "Okay, well, you're small compared to some of the bigger guys, so we're going to just buy from them." And we weren't with those guys, so we lost one. Hopefully, we'll get it back one day. Maybe soon.
Right.
But
So
yeah, I would
be
say
persistent, it sounds like.
and make
And
and be strategic about if you're going to have a distributor or if this is for food and beverage, figuring out if they have relationship with those chains already. Because if they don't, it's going to be very hard for you to get in because you're essentially trying to get them in for you because they would have to buy
mm,
from the distro, not the supplier.
gotcha.
Yep.
So one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and I ask all my winery people as well, there's a lot of misconceptions out there in the marketplace around wine, around craft beers. And, what would be the biggest thing that you would want to dispel that people might assume about your brand or your beers that you just want to set the record straight?
Okay. Well, I will say this. I mean, I think we just touched on one of them about like IPAs being bitter. Like, I think there are some that are, but there are also some that aren't.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to say this is going to be a hot take, but beer is better when it's ice cold. And there's a bar called Church Key in DC. It's really famous. Shout out to those guys. And they have different serving temperatures for different types of beer because you know I think some ales, like especially with the worldwide, around 48 degrees or like around like low 50s, those that honey notes and some of that stuff kind of opens up. Whereas like I feel
Mm-hmm.
like well we're taught like you needed ice cold beer because like no knock to like Coors Light and Bud Light, but some of those lower quality beers have to be served cold because they're just not good when they get warm. So I think that like the hot take is that an ice cold beer is refreshing, but there are certain beers that taste better when they warm up a little bit. Yeah.
I agree. And that goes for wine as well.
Okay.
Serving temperature matters a lot. And I always say, if it's an inferior sort of your cheaper wines, those bars that serve those are going to keep it right on the ice because it's going to taste so much better, or you're actually not really going to taste it when it's icy cold.
Right.
Once it warms up to proper temperature, then the flavors start coming out. And I actually used to work at a wine store in New York City, and there were buyers that would taste the wine that people would bring in. They'd want to taste even the white wines warm because they're like, I can tell if it's inferior. I don't want an ice cold taste because that's kind of not giving me the full picture. And you can tell a really good wine is going to still taste good warm. It'll taste better at the right chill, but a wine that's not good warm is going to really kind of stand out. So
Yeah.
for your two here, is 48 about where you like it?
I would bump the IPA up to probably mid 50s, and I would take the pale ale down a little bit. Yeah, and
Okay.
high 40s. I think that's pretty. I mean, kind of like your British like pub ale, basically. I think worldwide.
Okay.
Like I just had one on the beach yesterday, and it was outside. I was like kept drinking. I was like, oh, like what is this? It tasted more sweet or something. It was good. I liked it. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And with these, either the IPA or the pale ale, do you have any specific? Because we talk a lot about pairings with wine, like this food is so great with this wine. Are there any foods or dishes that you love with one or the other? What would you, if you're sitting down and enjoying, what would you put with the pale ale and what would you put with the IPA?
Okay, so I've been playing around with this, and I've got okay, so I will say this, like a steak taco with a little bit of like the spicy salsa on it, the green salsa, and the pale
Okay.
ale. is really good. Like a
Ooh,
smoked like a meat or something on a taco with a little bit of the green salsa verde and the pale ale, really good. Surprisingly, like Thai or Vietnamese food, like a noodle dish or something with a little bit of like curry or like I'm trying to pronounce. I can taste it in my mouth, but I can't describe the flavor. Not lemongrass, but the IPA, like a coconut milk lime kind of like spice combo is really good with that.
nice.
Yeah.
That sounds delicious.
Mhm.
Well, it seems in wine and beer, I think people are really craving experiences these days more than anything else. And I know that's what you're trying to bring together with your brand, with the community and events. You mentioned MegaFest, I believe. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about what is MegaFest? When is it going to be? And how can people find out about these pop up cool events that you guys are doing?
Okay. Yeah. It was very important for us to kind of find a way to bring people together really early on because we don't have a physical brick and mortar. And so, where there's advantage of people like meeting up in the tap room, we don't really have that. So, we were trying to find cool things to bring folks together. And I think music is that's like beer and music is like our number one connector. So, the concept behind MegaFest originally was inspired by the Hyde Park Brew Fest. I'm from Chicago originally, and there was this like house music beer thing in a parking lot back in my grandma's old neighborhood. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was just a block party basically, but they had beer vendors. And I know that, we do beer fest. The beer community does beer festivals really well, but it just never really like a dance party. It's more people just kind of going around and drinking. And so
Hmm.
MegaFest started off celebrating our anniversary. So it's supposed to be our anniversary party. And so we basically do it at the end of summer and we pick these kind of obscure locations. Like 2022 was our first one. We had it like in an abandoned parking lot of a Walter Reed Military Hospital, which is now developed into
Wow.
a whole new community. But my inspiration was like Rick's prison in The Walking Dead. I want to find like a collegiate, like dystopian college like tailgate
Hmm.
vibe. The second year we did on the water right across from Nats Park in Anacostia, which is a historically black neighborhood in DC, and we had it Sandlot. And so last year we had it at Anthem Row in front of the Apple Store downtown. With and that was the first year DC government kind of got involved and helped us out. So we're aiming for the end of September this year, and it's going to be still in downtown. Is what I hope. We have two venues in mind, but I'm juggling, trying to figure out which one to pull the trigger on, who we can get the most support from. But yeah, the concept is basically making a dance party and making a beer culture and bringing folks together that way. So last year we had like 9 DJs. I think that was a little bit too much, but it was basically like 7 hours of dance straight, and people loved it. It rained, so we didn't get the exact turnout we wanted last year. But the best thing about it is people didn't leave, so we had people like dancing in the rain and stuff. If you want to learn more about any of our Soul Mega events, we post a lot on Instagram. We're at soulmega.us. That's soulmega.us. And also on our website, soulmega.com, we post our events
Perfect.
there in the events section. You can see some of the recaps of our prior ones. And you can also join our mailing list from our website or Instagram page and get the information before everybody else does.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So now that you've kind of accomplished so much already with the business and won this amazing competition, you're going to get this coaching from the Samuel Adams Brewery. What do you see the next 5 years for the brewery? What are your goals for where you want to be in 5 years from now?
Okay. Yeah, I'm super excited to get to work with Sam Adams. I think number one, getting selected for this competition kind of validates our brand in kind of like the craft beer industry. It's something I've been working on since I first started. For us in the next 5 years, I definitely see us growing along the East Coast in all the major metropolitan markets. I think that's my goal. I like
Hmm.
to be regionally recognized and have our beer, as north as Massachusetts and maybe south of Georgia, maybe
Yeah,
Florida.
there you go. I
Yeah,
love it. Big goals, big
yeah,
goals.
yeah, the whole East Coast.
Really great. Well, it sounds like you're on your way. And I was just wondering, because I have so many people listening that may be, hardcore into wine, but maybe have never had an IPA or don't drink beer on the regular. So if you were going to introduce a wine drinker, a wine lover to craft beers like the two we've been tasting, how would you do it? Where would you tell them to start?
Okay, so if I was gonna take a wine drinker and put them on one of ours first, and I just did this actually at a tasting in Baltimore on Friday. There was the wine sommelier there, like, refused to come to my table and try the beer. But, she liked the pale ale, and I think she liked the hints of orange and some of the sweetness. that she gets from some of the, I guess, orange wines that she drank. But I would say if you're a red drinker and you like that more kind of like a little bit of astringency and a little bit more like full body, I would say maybe start with a stout, an Irish stout, or maybe a red ale, something that's a little bit more malt forward. If you're a white drinker, and we don't sell this, but I'm going to promote it anyway, I would maybe start with a sour beer or like a mixed fermentation beer, like a lambic or like something with like a wild
Fruit.
and then like fruit. Yeah, to
Yeah.
get more of like the fruit characteristics, a little bit more of the sourness. If you're right down the middle, I would say I would start with our Metropolis IPA because you're gonna get a lot of the fruit aromatics. I think that's complementary to maybe a rosé, if you will, or and I'm not the wine guy, but you know,
That's okay.
I like cab.
Mhm.
I think the orange wine and rosé kinda like or maybe like is it like Chardonnay kinda buttery? I think that's the right word.
Yes, it
Yeah.
can be.
Yeah,
Yes.
so I think playing along those, like, those areas would be good match for the IPA. If you wanna go crazy and you're used to, like, maybe like a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc or something like that, I would try a sour. And if you like something
Nice.
super mellow and kinda like you wanna just pour a nice glass and vibe out, I would say go Imperial Stout. Do the barrel aged one, 10% or something. Yeah.
Love that. Well, I know you're gonna do this collab with Samuel Adams Brewery. Is the beer that you're collabing, will that be for sale? Will people get to taste that?
Yes, it will be for sale. We just had our meeting this week about our planning for it. I believe it'll be available, if not nationally, definitely regionally. And so
Mhm.
we roll the product out. We'll have a whole campaign. I got a bunch of ideas for like storytelling and content we're going to put together for it. But for sure, we're going to have a bunch of release events in different markets.
Well, great. Well, keep us posted so I can let my listeners know when it's available and where it's available because I know we're all going to want to try that. But these two are both delicious. I have to say, the IPA is the biggest sort of mind blown for me today because usually I'm not digging the IPAs because they're just overly bitter, and yours is not. So I'm super
Okay,
excited to have found one that I like.
we
So
converted
thank
you.
you.
Boom, job done.
Converted. But Elliot, thank you so much for coming on the Sipping Point, and I can't wait to see what you guys come out with next.
Awesome. Lori, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure and a really fun time.
Awesome. Cheers.